All right, welcome back to another episode of the Karter Cast. I'm your host, Karter Baughan. With me, as always, Chase and Connor. Connor, welcome back. Did miss you on Thursday, I believe the pod was. Yeah, Thursday night. That was a late pod. Great pod. If you didn't listen, go check it out. It's a little dated. But anyhow, we're back. Instagram comments after us, Chase, after the Austin Reeves video. Not a lot of context is being used by people. That's all right. That's just what it is. It just cracks me up every time the Instagram comments, because I don't get the notifications on my phone. So I'll log into the KarterCast Instagram sometimes, and I logged in yesterday. I see 100 comments, 100 plus comments, 100 plus likes on one video. I was like, oh no, oh no! I already knew it was coming. So disaster over there. How are the comments treating you, Chase?
Dude, it's not bad. Apparently, I'm recording this from my mom's basement, which is news to me. And apparently I should also have my mic taken away, which, it's not mine anyway. So
it should probably cost $1 billion. Dude,
yeah.
welcome. That's like that should be the initiation process for all guests that come on the podcast. You're like, you have to get called Mom's Basement, and it's just the heavy hitters. Mom's Basement, you shouldn't own a mic.
It's like the four horsemen of the apocalypse. It's anybody can buy a mic. You're in your mom's basement. Anyone can make a podcast. I'm blocking your feed. Those are like the top four we get. So,
I don't. The blocking feed one isn't as that one's not as much. I feel like it's It's different when Dylan's on.
That is true, because Dylan says some outlandish takes on purpose just to stir people up.
Usually they're just like, who is this Four Eyes? And it's just off the rails from there.
I would just say to everyone making those comments, like, keep them up and post them on Twitter, post them on YouTube. Like, let's get that engagement up, man. Keep it up.
Yeah, share it, like and subscribe.
One thing I saw that I was just shocked about, we talked about it before the show for a minute, is Brandon Ingram fan club, Brandon Ingram cult. Like, I don't understand where this came from. I mean, if you're going to choose an NBA player to have a cult following, I don't know if Brandon Ingram is really the first one that comes to mind, but there's a lot of strong Brandon Ingram faithful out there. So shout out to you guys, I guess, for hitching your wagon to that guy.
Why? I don't care to respond to the comments because it's not going to solve anything. You're like, he's not a ball stopper. It's like, you don't, and then they're like, you don't watch the games. It's like, I'm literally watching every single game. I'm sitting here. I pay for League Pass every effing month. I'm losing money left and right trying to watch Pelicans games. I watch these games. Brandon Ingram, I'm saying this, F the Pelicans. Right here, F the Pelicans in every which way. The Pelicans have had 3 future Hall of Fame superstar caliber players, Chris Paul, Anthony Davis, and Zion Williamson. What are they going to do with them? Absolutely nothing. They are a worthless piece of crap franchise that deserve to be moved out of the crap hole of New Orleans. New Orleans is the biggest dump on planet Earth. It's a piece of crap there. F New Orleans, F the Pelicans. The Smoothie King Center is the worst arena in the league. You're in the NBA playoffs. Hey, you're in the NBA playoffs. Your tickets are $7. That's how useless of a franchise you are. Just move them. Move them anywhere else out of New Orleans. Get Zion out of there. Get the good players out of there. Keep Brandon Ingram. Get an expansion franchise and keep Brandon Ingram there. And have fun barely making the play-in every year. Have C.J. McCollum there. Is that what you really want, Pelicans fans? There you go. You have it. Then trade Zion. Get him out of there. How about we get him to a good team? Let's get him to the Knicks. Let's get him to even the Hornets would do better with him. Get him out of New Orleans. New Orleans is a disaster franchise. F New Orleans. F them.
That rant right there was like the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand that started the World War. Like, now Carter's at war with New Orleans.
New Orleans. I asked. This conversation comes up all the time. You've been to New Orleans, Connor. That's probably the last city in this country I would want to live.
I think that's spot on. I mean, walking down Bourbon Street, even after Carolina beat Duke, I was just like, this is disgusting. Genuinely.
It's awful. Shout out LSU, though. LSU's cool. Baton Rouge is cool. Anyhow, but before we get into the podcast today, we're brought to you by SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com. Use code KarterCast. $20 off your first purchase. $50 minimum purchase required. Terms and conditions do apply. Use code KarterCast. $20 off. Going to Rays Red Sox tomorrow, I believe. And I will be using code KarterCast at SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com. Use code KarterCast, KarterCast for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get into the show right now. Game 7, it happened. We got 2 Game 7s today. We'll do Pacers, Knicks later on the second half of the show. Nuggets, Timberwolves. I'll start off real quick. Shocked. Nuggets up 15, blow it. One of the biggest chokes I think. I can't remember what Ernie said. It was one of the biggest chokes ever in Game 7 history. I'm just shocked from that. Connor, I'll just let you start here.
Yeah, I mean, the first thought I have is what percentage would you guys have given them to come back, the Timberwolves, when they were down 15 at halftime and they started the third quarter down 20? Like, what percentage are you guys giving them to come back? Because I would maybe
10.
say 2 or 3%. I don't even think 10. I think 10's a stretch. What about you, Chase?
Yeah, I mean, probably around 10. I get a little bit
Yeah.
more than single digits just because the way they had played all series. They had it in them, but I didn't see it coming. That's for sure.
Moral of the story is it's just like everybody was counting them out. Like when they were down 15 at halftime, it was like, oh, this is over. Like they had a great season. Ant's awesome. Like young team, but nobody really thought the defending champions were going to fold like that in the second half. And then all of a sudden, Timberwolves come out with all this energy. They make a run, and it almost looked like the Nuggets were shell-shocked. They spent all that energy getting the lead. Murray was awesome in the first half. Jokic had 15 boards at halftime. He was getting whatever he wanted. And then all of a sudden, the Wolves are still there. It's like a boxer. You get nailed, knocked down, and then the other guys celebrate, and they turn around. And I made this reference before. The Wolves are right back up. They're standing there. They're like, all right, let's keep going. Like, here's another round. Jokic and Murray combined for 69 of Denver's 90 points. And it's a little poetic because last season with the Suns, Booker and Durant were having 35, 40 each, and the Nuggets beat them because it just wasn't enough. And that's what it felt like tonight. Denver's other guys, that is the characteristic that's made them so unbeatable the last year or two, is these role players. Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon's been awesome. KCP's defense and hitting quality time threes. Those guys are usually awesome. They didn't have it tonight, and that's really the difference in the game. Jokic and Murray were good enough to win this game. The rest of the team wasn't.
Yeah, and talking about the Timberwolves comeback, I think the most shocking part of it all is how it happened. It happened through Cat. It happened through. It didn't really happen through Anthony Edwards. Yeah, he was awesome. He had like a 6-point stretch or whatever in the third quarter, and he hit a big three at the end. But it was the majority of the other guys: McDaniels, Cat, even Gobert. But Gobert hitting fadeaway Jokic shots over Jokic. It was unbelievable.
He saw our clip.
Yeah, he saw it. I mean, yeah. Apologies to Gobert and Cat. I wasn't familiar with your game, I guess. Chase, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the Nuggets. Obviously, generational choke. I believe the stat you're looking for, Karter, is teams with at least 15-point lead at halftime were 21-0 in Game 7s, and now that record is 21-1. They are the first team to blow that big of a halftime lead, I should say, in a Game 7 in NBA history. It's a bad look. Going off what Connor said first, role players were awful. Terrible. Outside of Jokic and Murray, the most points scored was MPJ with 7, which you just can't have from him. You had 4 points and 4 rebounds from Aaron Gordon in 42 minutes of play. He's minus 14 for the game. I mean, it's just, even Jokic couldn't overcome that with the game that he had. 34 points, 19 rebounds, 7 assists. And you can kind of see it here in these stats. Jokic took 10 3-pointers, which is unheard of. I did some research. The last time Jokic took 10 3-pointers in a game, February 11th, 2022 at Boston. They lost that game. I was looking at the box score. Facu Campazzo, Zeke Naji played 28 minutes each. JaMychal Green and Brent Forbes got minutes. So did Bones Highland. I think he started.
Prime.
It was that awful Denver team, right? And that's why Jokic had to take that many threes. It's just not his game, obviously. And he only shot 20%, which would have cashed if Karter hadn't talked me out of it, but it doesn't matter. But for Denver, it was just an all-time, not just choke, but a pooping the bed from anyone not named Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray. It's just embarrassing for that team to go out there and do that, especially after like being the defending champs, being in that situation before, closing out a team that, I don't want to take anything away from Minnesota to play good. Denver should have closed out that team. They're the better team. And they just didn't tonight. And it was a bad showing from everyone other than those two guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing we talked about all offseason is, okay, you lose Bruce Brown, you lose some guys on Denver. You're like, where's this help coming from? It's not coming from DeAndre Jordan. Do you really trust Reggie Jackson in these big moments? And it came up. It came back to him. It really did. And you just tell yourself these whole playoffs, you're just like, hey, the Nuggets are just going to figure out. I don't know how. I don't know if Peyton Watson's going to be the guy. I don't know if Holiday's going to be the guy. One of these guys are going to step up. The Nuggets just always figure out a way to do it, and they just didn't. And that's what it came down to in the end, like you mentioned, because and you mentioned the Jokic threes. When he was taking those threes, he looked uncomfortable on most of those three-point attempts. He didn't want to take this.
Right.
There was none of those. He was like, you know what? He looked for every other option before taking those three-pointers. He second-guessed every three-pointer he took in that game. And that's a big reason why he was 2 for 10. He wasn't even confident in it because he didn't necessarily want to shoot it. He wanted to go into guys. And credit to Cat tonight. Cat was unbelievable. Cat was the best player in that game tonight, in my opinion. He was unbelievable. He was able to go blow for blow with Jokic. He really was. Jokic had a lot of problems with him in the paint going into him. Yeah, he had a ton of points, but a lot of those points were on Gobert.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Is it fair to say Jokic was tired also? He played 47 minutes tonight. That's his most minutes in a game since 2019 in a game against Portland that went to quadruple overtime. I saw that on Twitter. So it's like he was tired. He hasn't played that many minutes in years. So, I mean, I know it's game 7. You want to play your guys as many minutes as possible. Like, shout out Tom Thibodeau. But if you're the Nuggets and you're up 15-20 in the first half, maybe give Nikola Jokic like a few minutes on the bench. It's like, if the lead dwindles to 11 or something, we'll get him back in. But try to buy him 4 or 5 minutes in the first half because even when they had that huge lead, they kept him in most of the game. So I think that was a factor. The other factor is you hit it on the head with the bench. The Nuggets didn't have the depth this year that they had in the past years, and primarily Bruce Brown, because when those starting 5, when those other guys aren't performing well, when Michael Porter Jr.'s got 7 points, when Aaron Gordon scores 4 points, KCP's not hitting from behind the arc, then where do you go? Christian Brown had some good minutes, sure, but they trotted out a lineup of Jokic, Christian Brown, Holiday, Reggie Jackson, and who's the 5th? I wrote it down right here. Oh, KCP, yeah. So it's Jokic, KCP, Holiday, Christian Brown, and Reggie Jackson. What kind of lineup is that in the third quarter? That allowed the Timberwolves to get on a little run the last few minutes of the third quarter. I think the depth is a big factor there, and Jokic was tired. Moral of the story. So shout out Cat, shout out Naz Reid at the end for blocking him a few times, got the better of him. They really made him work tonight. He had an awesome stat line, and Murray had a great first half, but it looks great on paper. He wasn't as involved in the second half, and I'm going to give him a little bit of criticism for that because he had a great first half, but then he kind of fell off at the end.
That's why Anthony Edwards in the postgame, he goes, yeah, I guarded Jamal Murray in the second half, and really was the difference. That's why we'll get into we have a lot to talk about with Anthony Edwards. We'll get into that in a second. But still on the Denver side of things, Chase and I were talking about it before we hit the record button. 10:50 left in the third quarter to 10:15 left in the fourth quarter. 10 points for the Nuggets. They scored 10 points. It is 58-68. That was the game. Like, and when you're watching on TV, I don't know if you guys felt this way. You're watching on TV and you're just like, man, the Nuggets can't. And it wasn't even like insane defense on most of those plays. It was just Jamal Murray missed open 3, Michael Porter Jr. missed open 3. Oh, why did Aaron Gordon miss that dunk? A missed and one opportunity. They go 1 for 2 from the line. You're just like, they just can't hit right now. They're just cold. And then slowly but surely, Minnesota just kept chucking away. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, I remember sitting there. I was like, it was 77-75 midway through the fourth quarter, and you're like, I think I'd rather be Minnesota right now. They have all the momentum.
You can feel it in the crowd.
You can feel it. And everybody in that crowd got tight and silent. Everybody. And
in the fourth quarter.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, bouncing off what you just said, in the fourth quarter, there were so many possessions where the first action didn't work for Denver. Jokic catches at the top of the key, and then nobody else moves. Nobody cuts. Nobody sets a back screen, a flare screen. Nobody comes for a dribble handoff. Murray's just standing on the wing, and the crowd starts like murmuring. They're like, oh my God, there's a minute and a half left. We're down 8. Somebody has to move. I felt that through the TV screen the last few minutes of the game. Just stagnant, which is not typical for a Jokic-led offense at all.
Not at all. But I think that's really it on the Denver side of things. We'll talk about Denver's future in a minute, but talking about the game tonight in the Timberwolves, they did it, dude. I cannot believe they did it. They deserve all the credit in the world. I'll be the first one to come on here and say I was 1,000% wrong. I doubted the Timberwolves. I doubted Rudy Gobert. I doubted Karl Anthony Towns. I was 100% wrong. I own up to it. Rudy Gobert, hit a ridiculous shot over Jokic. He had some big plays, some big rebounds. Karl Anthony Towns was hitting big shot after big shot. He had the dagger, that dunk to put him away. That's going to be a Timberwolves highlight for years to come. I mean, he was unbelievable tonight. Cat played phenomenal defense. He only had a couple dumb fouls that didn't truly kill him tonight. But then guys like Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and then Anthony Edwards stepped up when the moment was brightest. Kenny Smith said something phenomenal after or said something I 100% agree with after the game. Anthony Edwards goes 6 for 24 in this game. No one's going to remember that. No one cares. It's like when you think about Kobe Bryant, or even Jordan. Jordan had a lot of those games where he goes 9 for 28. You're like, it doesn't matter. He won the game. Kobe Bryant, I think Game 7 Boston, right, Chase? He went 6 for 24, didn't he?
Couldn't tell you exactly, but something like that.
It was something like that.
Yeah, and no one talks about it because guess what? He won the game. They hit big shots when it mattered, made huge plays, played phenomenal defense in the biggest moments. Anthony Edwards, man, this is unbelievable. Like, he's so fun to watch. The post game interview was phenomenal. I just can't get enough of the guy. I really can't.
It was impressive. I think the bigger story here isn't exactly how Anthony Edwards played not great. Like, this certainly wasn't a good game for him by any standards. It's how everyone else on the Timberwolves stepped up. Like you were talking about, I had every reason to bet against Karl Anthony Towns, especially in a big game. Gobert looked like in the first half that that you were right, Karter, about everything you've ever said about him. But they just found a way to do it, and they got back to what worked for them, right? It's tough defense and pushing the ball in the open court, getting shots and taking them and having that confidence to do it. With this Minnesota team, they're so young, and I really just saw like they just wanted it more than Denver. They were just scrappy, and they weren't going to walk out of there without the biggest fight of their lives. And they wanted this, and they had clearly talked about this, and they were not going to roll over after going down 3-2 after being up 2-0 early, right? And this is an impressive performance from a team that I think is less talented, less experienced, and yet they just wanted it more. And you could tell after the game, McDaniel tried to do like an off the bounce oop to himself, which was a little excessive, but like that's the kind of attitude and mentality they have right now. They celebrated hard, maybe a little too much. I don't know if people like that. It looked like they had won the finals, but you can tell this meant a lot to them and that they wanted this really bad. And in the end, I think that was the difference because Denver just became complacent. Their bench did not show up not just the bench. Everyone didn't show up for the moment except for Jokic and Murray. And Timberwolves, they're got the momentum. They have the right attitude to get even more done after the series.
On the championship DVD for the Timberwolves, can they include the Patrick Beverley play-in standing on the scores table in this season's DVD as well?
It's the first thing I thought about when I saw them.
Yeah,
that really started the movement.
It started the movement. You're like, oh, this is it. I guess that's truly when they arrived, I guess. But quick shout out to every T-Wolves fan, man. Like, as someone who cheers for a crappy small market piece of crap franchise at the moment,
bad owners, just a disaster for years, and you're the laughing stock of the league. And now to see them where they're at, like it gives Hornets fans, Wizards fans, so much hope. And you're just like, man, like good for those guys. They deserve it. Just think about if you're a diehard Timberwolves fan, man. Like this is unbelievable. So shout out those guys, especially sticking through it for all those years. Connor, Timberwolves tonight. Yeah, so you guys covered Ant for a minute. I want to shout out Mike Conley. I think genuinely his ability to slow the game down, command the pace of the game, and make timely plays was the difference tonight. That was a huge difference. There was a big steal with like a minute and a half or 2.5 minutes left that eventually led to a basket that put him up 10. He hit a three in the corner of the third quarter of the shot clock, winding down at the buzzer of the shot clock, cut the lead to single digits. Just time after time, play after play, just timely shots, timely passes, and really slowing the game down. For a young team like Minnesota with a budding superstar Anthony Edwards who is balls to the wall at all times, having that calming veteran presence beside him in the backcourt, I don't think that can be overstated how valuable that is. Talking about Ant, I think he really needs credit for his in-game adjustments because first half, the Nuggets were throwing that soft trap at him where they would wait till there was 12 seconds left in the shot clock. If he gets the ball back, they're running two guys at him. Not full speed, but just enough to make him give the ball up and force them to play 4-on-3 with the other guys. It wasn't working. First half, it wasn't working. Wolves couldn't figure it out. Second half, you saw a couple splits by Anthony Edwards. You saw him get rid of the ball quicker. You saw him move off the ball after he gave it up more. He adjusted. He made the right play. And I think that's a huge credit to his maturity that really we've seen grow throughout this playoffs, because him last year, you saw it, like he wouldn't have made those plays last year. So in the year since then, he is now this mature player that just beat the defending champions in Game 7 at home. And I also will be the first to say I was wrong. If you would have told me this series is going 7 and Denver's got a home game in Game 7 against Minnesota, I would have said Denver by at least 10. But I was wrong. So, and you know what? He's an awesome superstar, and they're fun to watch. So good for them.
Yeah, that was the post game with Charles Barkley. That was amazing last night.
That was great.
I'm losing my mind here. Eastern time sucks, by the way. I can't get in.
Stop.
I can't emphasize. It sucks. Eastern time's by far the worst.
Well, I've never known anything different, so I can't really argue.
Dude, go out west, brother. It's so much better watching sports right now. All right, talking about that's enough on Game 7. We'll get into Timberwolves Mavs in a second. Nuggets future. I think we're all going to be aligned here. What's the next move for the Nuggets, Connor?
All right, so I don't know what the next move for the Nuggets themselves is, but my first prediction is Michael Porter Jr. wants out this summer. I think that is my first prediction.
Do you think it's Michael Porter Jr. wants out, or he's pushed out or dangled in trades?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, because you saw it tonight. As soon as Mike Malone found one guy off the bench and Christian Brown that he could trust in the game, he was easily replaced. Like, he brought Christian Brown in early in the third quarter, earlier in the first quarter than normal. Michael Porter, I think, played like 14 minutes in the first half, which is a little bit low in a Game 7 for the guy that's supposedly your third best player. And it just showed he didn't really trust him. And the thing is, Michael Porter Jr. wasn't playing awful. He had a couple blocks to start the game. Like, he had a couple shots. Like, it wasn't anything crazy. He still played bad in the second half. But Mike Malone couldn't wait to replace him. And the thing with Michael Porter is, it seems like he's the type of player. Now, I don't know him personally, obviously. But it seems like he's the type of player to be like, I want to be more involved in the offense. I can't be fourth fiddle to Jokic and Murray and Aaron Gordon and whoever. I can't be getting 10 shots a game and getting benched in the fourth quarter sometimes. Give me my own team, or make me at least a more featured option on a team. And I think he goes to a horrible team, gets 17 points a game on 25 shots a game, and he's like, man, I screwed up. I was playing with the best player in the world. I wanted more, and here I am on Washington or Detroit, averaging 17 on a 12-60 team.
He's a trailblazer.
Oh, that's a good one. Him and Ayton. They're going to be a problem.
Him, Ayton, and Simons, the big
Who's
three.
stopping this young trio?
And then you get hooked on their points prop every night, and you're like, I had Anthony Simons over 20.5, dude. He finished with 20 on 3 of 21 shooting.
I paired it with Blazers plus 19.
Chase, do you agree Michael Porter Jr. is the move in the offseason?
I think this Shams tweet is like at least 2 weeks away, right? People in MPJ's camp aren't happy. You never know. Let it cool down for a little bit.
The over-under is 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's always right after the game. It's always right after the game.
Yeah. Either way, I think
Twitter
it's coming.
right now.
The problem is with MPJ is his value is taking a hit in these playoffs. And he's definitely not worth as much as he was, say, obviously at the end of last season. And I don't know if he's unhappy in Denver, but he does seem like the type of guy to want to get more minutes. But I think he also has to put things into perspective. And I really genuinely think he's enjoyed his time there. Obviously, Denver's laid their nuts on the line for him, drafting him even though he didn't even play college basketball that season, right? Building him into who he is, making him an NBA champion, pairing him with the best player in the world. But it's that ego, right? And if that's going to get in the way and he wants more minutes, then he can get out. The problem is, like I said, for Denver is what's your asking price? What are you going to get in return? If you're Denver, you're hoping, right, just more depth, particularly, at the guard and the wing, and trying to build another team for Jokic to be able to just kick the ball out, hit shots. We always like to say Bruce Brown because they won that championship so easy, but get another Bruce Brown, man. That's who they needed.
Bring in Bruce Brown. He's getting dangled in trades left and right. He's out there.
The reunion.
Yeah. Or, hear me out, Brandon Ingram to the Nuggets. Who says no?
I think if you're the Nuggets, you go find every single game tape from this Minnesota series and burn it and destroy all the evidence, and then you tell teams look what he did against the Lakers. Look what Michael Porter did against the Lakers. This is who you're getting. This is the real guy. 25 a game.
I think they run it. I think they run it back. Bring in a couple rookies, and then maybe just try and sign someone in free agency, shift around, get DeAndre Jordan out of town, and try and make it work that way. Because guess what, man? I mean, there's a third quarter goes differently. We're talking about this like, wow, the Nuggets, they're probably going back-to-back. Like, they're probably going to take care of the Mavericks, and then it's Celtics versus Nuggets like we thought all along. Now it's a totally different discussion, obviously. That's how it all works. It's sports. But if
weird.
you were to make a move, it's Michael Porter Jr. It's got to be Michael Porter Jr.
I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like this season, there wasn't as many buyout candidates as in years past. Because in years past, it's like, oh, Blake Griffin, where's he signing? Or Aldridge, or all these people like signing with superstar-led teams. But like before the season, I thought like, oh, Denver's going to be this prime destination for somebody getting bought out that can still contribute to go play with Jokic. But that didn't really happen. And they didn't have any
Could they
depth.
have used Gordon Hayward tonight? All right, let's transition now. Timberwolves Mavericks. Who would have thought this is our Western Conference Finals? The Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Dallas Mavericks. Imagine someone telling you in September, be like, hey, by the way, Kyrie, no craziness all season long. Anthony Edwards becomes a Michael Jordan-like superstar in the NBA. Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns versus Derek Lively and P.J. Washington in the Western Conference Finals. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it. But it also does check out. I mean, I think the regular season does matter, even though I know OKC was the number 1 seed and all. But the day-to-day NBA people covering teams, I think all of them love these two teams more than anyone throughout the regular season. They're like, I'm very high on the Mavericks. I'm very high on the Timberwolves throughout the season, it felt like.
Especially post-deadline.
Yeah, especially post-deadline and P.J. Washington coming in. And they're the Mavs front office. I know Brad Stevens. He deserves the Executive of the Year. Whatever second place is, give it to Dallas, especially for a midseason award. Oh, my goodness, man. That trade changed everything. I got it pulled up right here. Mavericks, Timberwolves. I have series odds. It's shifted already. A lot of action on Minnesota. Minnesota minus 180. Dallas plus 145 to win the series for a chance at the NBA Finals. Overall thoughts going into the series, Connor?
Yeah, I want to start with this. If you would have told me that, so of the 4 remaining teams right now, I think 3 of them, other than Boston, if you would have said they'd be in the conference finals before the season, I would have said you're smoking crack. Like the Indiana Pacers, there's no way. Because number one, they didn't have Siakam yet. But even after the Siakam trade, I'd have been like, no way. They might make the second round. And then the Timberwolves, I'd have been like, no way, they're not ready yet. Anthony Edwards isn't going to lead this team to the Western Finals, not in a conference with the Nuggets and all these people.
They felt like a Grizzlies candidate where they're like, hey, they're going to be awesome in the regular season. They're going to win a playoff round and then get bounced in the second round.
Oh, yeah, I was low on them going into the playoffs. And then the Mavericks, before the season, it's like, oh, my God, they missed the playoffs last year. This Kyrie experiment is about to blow up in their face. What are they going to do? And even after the deadline, there were people talking about how they didn't like the PJ move or the Gafford move or all these different things they did. It worked out. And I think, Carter, we did this podcast segment like weeks ago where it was like changing of the guard, Edwards, SGA, all these new stars coming to the forefront of the league and being the face of the league. This really feels like the moment everything shifts because you look at the conference finals, you look at the Final Four, you don't see any familiar faces. There's no LeBron. There's no Curry. There's no Kevin Durant. There's no Giannis. There's no Embiid, even though he's not too familiar there. And there's no Jokic. There's not even any Jokic this year, which would have been my safe bet to be there. So all of a sudden it's Luka. All of a sudden it's Anthony Edwards. All of a sudden it's Tyrese Halliburton. Like, what are we doing here? It was almost
Jason
SGA.
Tatum.
Yeah, Jason Tatum. It feels like the changing of the guard to where it's like, all right, these teams are going to be the powerhouses now. Maybe not the Pacers so much, but these other 3 teams at least are going to be like contenders for years to come. And now I'm not going to be as surprised when, OKC's there, or, Luka made another run, or, here comes the Celtics again for the 5th straight year. Like, it just seems like a big change of the guard, and that's the number one takeaway I have from the Final Four. And I think it's going to be pretty entertaining, I will say. I think it'll be pretty entertaining.
The weird thing, when you look at it from the sit back perspective, is that you look at these 4 teams, one of Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, and
Luka
Doncic. One of those 4 players are going to be an NBA champion, and their career is going to be changed and how they're looked at for the rest of their lives. Like, we are going to talk about Jason Tatum in a totally different attitude if he wins this title. Same with Luka, same with Anthony Edwards. If the Pacers somehow do it, we might have to make a podcast bet where, like, I eat 100 liters of pickles or something stupid, because no way that happens. I mean, no.
That's a fun way to look at it, though, because the Final Four teams, none of them have won a title before, like with this group. Like, yeah, the back-to-back stuff with Denver was fun to talk about, and it would have been cool to see a team defend their title. But now with the conference finals, we are literally looking at 4 teams who are going to win their first championship, whichever team wins it. So I think that's a great way to look at it.
It's also going to be the 6th straight different NBA champion. Like, no one will have repeated in the last 6 or all different teams. So it's a lot of fun. To move over to Wolves Dallas, super excited about this series in particular. I think this is kind of one of those immovable force meets unstoppable object meets an immovable force kind of deal. Dallas's offense is electric, right? You have all the guys that can go score. If PJ Washington's hitting shots, Derek Lively's grabbing boards, they're borderline unstoppable. Whereas the Timberwolves have one of the best defenses we've seen in the last couple decades, right? And it showed tonight and in a couple of these games in the Denver series, but it didn't show up every night, right? And that's where I think Dallas has a shot in this series, is to capitalize on those moments that the Timberwolves seem to have where they don't bring as much intensity defensively, or I don't know exactly what happens to them. The problem for Dallas is the size that Minnesota's going to be able to throw at them. Because after Lively, your next best is going to be Gafford, and then you're looking at PJ Washington to fill in the forward 5, right? Guard either Cat or Gobert. And Minnesota's going to be able to expose that matchup and be able to put that. Because if you want to put your best defender on Edwards, you're probably looking at PJ Washington, right? Maybe Derek Jones Jr. if he's in there. You're still running small either way. So I think this is going to be a fun series, though, because there's going to be either a lot of scoring, right, both ways, or there's going to be some pretty intense like chess moves from coaches trying to figure out the lineups that work.
I have a bold prediction here. Karter, you'll love this. I think this is the Rudy Gobert series. I think this is a prime time series for Rudy Gobert to come out and really dominate, because there was maybe 3 total minutes in the Thunder Dallas series that Gafford or Lively wasn't on the court. One of them is on the court at all times. And as good as they are, rebounding the ball, pick and roll, blocking shots, they can't shoot. They don't initiate the offense. They're not Nikola Jokic. So Gobert is going to have such an easier time staying on the floor, being impactful with these guys that can't shoot from 3 feet away from the basket. Like, I think this is going to be a Gobert series. I really do.
I think it's a Gobert series, too. He matches up perfectly in this series with those guys. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot of PJ Washington at the 5, kind of like Chase mentioned, where they have to go small ball, spread it. At some point, especially when they're down, like, hey, we need a comeback and we're desperate. We're down 12, halfway through the 4th. Get Lively and Gafford out of here. Let's spread the floor, shoot threes, and see what we can kind of create. I think
try to play Gobert off the floor.
Yeah, exactly, and try and play Gobert off the floor. But, I mean, Derek Lively and Gafford are going to have a much tougher time in the pick and roll. Those alley-oops are not going to be there every possession. Another key in this series, too, is I know we always talk about it, and it's a very cliche thing to talk about in these series, is these role players like Derek Jones or Jaden McDaniels stepping up, because those have been the difference so far. Derek Jones was unbelievable in Game 6 on Saturday. I mean, hit 4 rebounds. He had 22 points. Derek Jones Jr., this guy was barely on G League rosters back in 2019, and this guy is all of a sudden a three-point shooter in the playoffs in the biggest moments.
Karter, I wrote this down. It's perfect you brought up Derek Jones Jr. Came in the league in 2016, undrafted. Only one other season as a primary starter. He started 43 games for Portland in 2020, and he only averaged 14 minutes a game for the Chicago Bulls last year. He was on his way out of the league. I really did. I was like, he's athletic. He's an awesome dunker. He's a pretty good defender, but he can't be as effective offensively to put him in a rotation, to really validate him in a winning rotation. I was like, he's going to be out of the league in 2 years. I felt firmly confident about that. And now he's like the 4th best player on Dallas. Like, he is one of their most important players. It's genuinely one of the most shocking turnarounds from a guy that I thought was out of the league that is now like hitting shots in a big moment.
Yeah, and also on the Jaden McDaniels side of things, is he going to be allowed to foul in this series every possession? Because I understand he's a great defender. He fouls every possession.
Luka might lose his voice. Luka legitimately might lose his voice from yelling at the officials when guarded by Jaden McDaniels. I cannot wait.
It's going to... FanDuel, if you're listening, put out a line of how many times Luka does this after the play. Like the LeBron. Why did I not get that call? I guarantee you it's over 19.5 in Game 1. Easily.
As funny as it is, guys, I actually think that's a big deal, right? How many fouls are the Timberwolves going to have? Because whether we like to admit it or not, Luka does get calls. That complaining works to a bit. And Jason Kidd is no dummy. He knows how to talk up refs and get them to
better
make
than
the
Mark
calls.
Dayton. I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into that.
hey, he is. Mavs in 6. Anyway, no, but that's going to be a big deal for Minnesota. Like, can these guys stand their floor? Can their perimeter defenders hang with Luka? I mean, we all thought in Game 1 of this Mavs Thunder series that Lou Dort had figured something out. Turns out he really hadn't, and he's one of the best on-ball defenders we have. Obviously, Minnesota's got a few of those guys as well, but it's going to be a real problem because Luka is as savvy as it gets when it comes to drawing fouls, and if Minnesota can't figure it out, then they're going to be in trouble.
I will say, I would never, like, obviously the players are the ones that decide the games, but in this series, more than any other series in the playoffs, the way the games are officiated will determine the outcome the most. I really do feel that way because if you're the Mavs and you're getting all these foul calls and, you know, Luka's hooking arms and he's getting calls and going to the line, that plays in their favor. But the Wolves, all their defenders are so physical. Jaden McDaniels, we all know it, physical defender. Anthony Edwards, physical defender. Nickeil Alexander-Walker comes in. He's a physical defender. Like, that is the Wolves' pride and joy, is being physical on defense. And then you have Karl Anthony Towns committing dumb fouls. So if the refs are really ticky-tacky, it plays in the Mavericks' favor. Whereas if they let them play and they let them, you know, grind it out, rock fight down low, that plays in the Timberwolves' favor. Because it is night and day from playing OKC with Chet as the only person above 6'5" on the court, and then playing the Timberwolves with 2 twin towers and Cat, Gobert, and then Naz Reid off the bench, who's another 7-footer. Night and day. So I'm really curious to see how the officials start this series off.
I think that's a huge point, too, because you remember watching Game 1 and Game 2 of the Nuggets series, you're like, oh my, the Nuggets can't get a call. I mean, it was, look, great defense by the Timberwolves, and this isn't saying, oh, screw the Timberwolves, they got lucky, they cheated or whatever. It's just the officials weren't calling fouls in those first 2 games. Minnesota was getting away with playing a lot more physical, and that plays to their advantage way more than the Nuggets. And if it's called similarly in this series, like you mentioned, then yes, it's going to be a huge advantage to Minnesota, and I would take Minnesota in this series 10 times out of 10 if that's how it's going to be officiated. But I think Chase brings up a great point. The way Luka gets officiated is so much different because Jokic, Connor, both of you guys, you're both 6'6", 6'7", whatever. You're both big guys. You guys both played big man in high school basketball. If any big man knows, you get fouled all the time, and it just gets unnoticed. No, big men never get the calls ever. And Jokic probably gets more calls than the rest. And he got calls. Don't get me wrong in some of these games, but nowhere to the level of what Luka and Kyrie and these other guys are going to get, where these guards, where they're able to be more flamboyant with the calls or with the calls.
Yeah, that is the way it is. It really is. Even just a high school basketball level, it's like if you don't see it enough, like if there's not a crazy reaction or you don't fall down, you're not going to get the call most likely.
No,
or on the other side of things, if you charge into somebody, even if it's not, like if I charge into a 7-footer with the same exact force as I charge into a 6'4" guard and he falls over, that's getting called a charge, and the other one's getting called a blocking foul.
Yeah, Chase, how many times a 5'10", 5'9" white kid reach in, hit your wrist, no call, because you're just bigger than him?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they can jump on my back, and, it's not going to be a call.
No such thing as over the back.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, that is going to be a big point. And, it's a different crew every night, so there's going to be games. We're going to know in the first quarter, really. As soon as we see how the officiating goings, if they're calling everything, then it's like, live bet the Mavs. If they're not,
bet. Yep.
Yeah, if they're not, then like Minnesota's gonna be able to have this. I'm really excited for this series, guys. I think if Kyrie can get going, I don't know if he has to get going for Dallas to have a chance in this series because he can do some damage being in the second option and take over games if he wants to, right? And if he's in that capacity, we just haven't really seen that from him so far this playoffs. He's been deferring to Luka, but he stepped up in some moments when he's needed to, but for the most part, he's been pretty passive. If Dallas really has any shot here, they need Kyrie to be vintage Kyrie.
100%. I could not agree more. Kyrie has to average. He has to score 20-plus points a game for them to win. If he does not score 20 points in a game, they are not winning. And when he turned it on in that second half against the Thunder, that was really the difference. I mean, he went on that crazy run because the first half, I think he finished with, 4 points? We had 20-plus points bet in that game, Connor.
4. And
all of a sudden, and then, 18 in that second half. He turned it on. And when he gets going, man, you feel helpless. For a 6-foot guard, you're just like, oh my gosh, like what do we do here? He can hit the toughest shots like that. That's a great point, Chase. Kyrie's going to be so pivotal in this series, and he's got to step up. He can't play this passive basketball because he was almost getting to that, not Ben Simmons level, but he was on the trajectory of Ben Simmons where he would drive to the paint, typically previous Kyrie would take that floater every single time he's looking for that alley-oop or that outlet pass. Every single time.
Which is not going to be there as much this series without, with Rudy Gobert
Especially
roaming
with
the
Gobert.
paint. Right, that's the thing. And I'm curious to see if Kyrie, typically he is a great finisher at the rim. He's the one that does all the acrobatic finishes and up and unders and using the basket to his advantage. With Gobert down there, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, mind you, guys. Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a little different this series than with OKC, who had Chet, and then, they're playing Jalen Williams, too, the guy from Arkansas, at the 4, the last 5 minutes of Game 6 because they were that desperate. And that's the thing. It's Dallas, points off turnovers in Game 6 against OKC, +8. Rebounds, +16. Second chance points, +19. That is where they won the game. That's not going to be how they win the game against Minnesota. They're going to have to score. Kyrie's going to have to hit tough shots, and they're going to have to just outpace them because Minnesota wants to slow it down. They want to muck it up. They want to get all the rebounds and block shots and be physical. It's going to be a completely different style of play than what Dallas just saw in the semifinals.
Yeah. And then, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. Do both of you guys want to apologize to the Mavericks fans out there?
Yes, I do.
I actually,
Yeah.
yeah. Chase, go ahead, please take the floor.
I do. No, I remember. This is no excuse. I picked OKC, but literally after the pod, I was texting Karter. I was like, I should have gone with Dallas. I like Dallas now.
It was the second I hit end recording, end session. It was I checked my phone, text from Chase. Oh, dude, Mavs are totally winning. Mavs are totally winning. What am I doing? I choked.
Yeah. But I'm not going to back it out. I was wrong. That was my official take. And, yeah, I was wrong about the Mavs. I really like them. So, yeah, I apologize. Sorry, Mavericks fans.
I want to give a shout out to us just for our wrong takes. We don't try to sweep them under the rug like other podcasts. Just never speak them of again. Where it's this guy's he's an MVP, and then he never hear from him again, and they sweep that take under the rug. We actually have accountability on the Karter cast, so good for us. I also was wrong, so I'm sorry, Mavs fans. I apologize.
I should just put out a compilation of us apologizing on podcasts. I was wrong about Gobert. I was wrong about this. I was wrong about that. Just to put it out there on the social media.
But when anybody want to watch a show where we're just well, the Mavs could win, the Thunder could win, so I don't know. Everybody has fun. We're going to give our opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Or would you rather? Or if you don't admit you're wrong, then you're just undisputed or first take. Then you're next segment. Can Stephen A. score 1 point on LeBron James? Up next. Real quick, series predictions. Mavs, Timberwolves. Chase, I'll start with you.
I like this series. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think at the end of the day, Minnesota's got too many guys, too much length. And if they play like they should, the path is very clear here for Minnesota to win this series. The only reason they would lose is if they are just dumb. And we'll see it on the court. We'll be like, what the freak are they doing? So with that in mind, I'm going to go Minnesota in 6. I do think Dallas grabs a few games. There's Scott Foster gets involved and hands them a couple. But going Minnesota in 6.
Connor.
Minnesota tonight, they showed me a lot. The way they overcame adversity in Game 7 against Denver, that really showed me something new about this team that I didn't really know existed. For them to play that well when Ant is struggling, to see they had that in them. Because Ant's going to have 1 or 2 bad games in a series. That's just how it's going to be. To see them overcome that tonight, though, that changed my opinion. Ultimately, I think, I've said this last round a couple times. I think this is a 7-game series. But if it goes back to Minnesota Game 7, I'm taking the Timberwolves at home. So I'm going Timberwolves in 7. It's a tough choice. I really did want to say Mavs. But after tonight, I'm going Wolves in 7.
I want to say Mavs so bad.
Do it. Do it, Karter.
And I'm going to say Mavs in 7. I think the Dallas Mavericks are going to the NBA Finals. I really do.
What a world.
Now, Game 7 in Minnesota, I'm very worried. I'll hand up. Very, very, very worried about the Mavericks winning in Minnesota Game 7, especially after what we saw tonight, how they were able to step up on the road. Maybe it's better to play Game 7 on the road. Maybe there's less pressure.
Just nothing to lose, yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing to lose, I guess. But I'm going to go Mavs in 7. 1, to be different, but 2, also, I've said this 1,000 times in these playoffs, and I'll say it again. When the game is tight, I don't know if there's many more people I want than Kyrie or Luka Doncic taking my shots. Kyrie's been in the biggest moment in NBA history. 2016 Cavs, I think he hit one of the biggest shots in NBA history. And then Luka, he can create better. He's probably the best one-on-one player in the league right now. That's going to matter. I think we're going to see a ton of close games. I'm praying we don't see a ton of blowouts because in the other conference final series, I think we'd see a lot of blowouts. So with that being said, give me Mavs in 7.
Don't put
Did
this
we want to do anything on – go ahead.
don't put this in a clip, but sneaky in this Timberwolves Mavs series. I think at the end of a game, if I need a shot to win the game, I think the Mavs have the top 2 players in the series to do that. I know Ant's awesome, but at the end of a game, I'm trusting Kyrie and I'm trusting Luka a lot more in the Western Conference Finals. I just am. If you need one shot, get a bucket.
Yeah. Is it weird I put Kyrie 1?
No, it's not at all. I don't think at all, especially with Luka not being 100% right now.
I sneaky didn't like that last Luka possession. He was losing in game 6.
He got lucky.
He lost the ball and then kicked it to PJ, who had to take a crazy shot and got fouled. So no. You're right. I actually like that take.
Yeah, he looked like me trying to get out of the pool. I was just slipping everywhere, and then all of a sudden I get lucky, keep myself up. It's like me walking on snow. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Did we want to do anything on OKC before we go to a quick break?
Yeah, just real quick. Lou Dort had 14 more three-point attempts than the second person on the team, which was Chet. So, Lou Dort's fine. He's a good starter. He had 41 three-point attempts. That's not going to win you a series. And it really comes down to, it's very rudimentary, very simple. OKC just needs more size. It's not hard. It's not hard to figure out if you're OKC. Sometimes the right answer is the easy answer.
Chase and I talked about this on Thursday. I want to get your take, Connor, real quick. Do you think they have a slight Chet problem? Because I think he's a sneaky, difficult person to pair with at his current size right now, where he's not filled out yet. So he really can't play the 5 because he's a little too skinny, a little too thin. You give up a lot of rebounding there, as we saw in the Mavericks series. But he's also not a good enough shooter and creator to truly play the float 4, so it limits your spacing at him at the 4. And then you'd have a Jared Allen, Rudy Gobert type at the 5, where it really clogs the lane more for a guy like SGA trying to drive. Because I think they have a sneaky Chet problem, where it's like, how do you really pair someone with this guy?
Yeah, I think that's a great take, because we went over this whenever we talked about Jared Allen trade rumors when we did that for 30 minutes a few weeks ago.
We can do that.
But
I said
no to the Thunder because Chet can't play the 4. He can't stretch the floor like that. He's not quick enough. And there's a lot of power forwards in the league he can't guard. So it's like, okay, in the era of small ball, we're going to play him at the 5. There's so many teams that are just bigger at the 5. Period. You have the Wolves who have Gobert and Towns, who are 2 real centers, but they made it work. I don't see it with Chet. I think you're right. He's caught in between that 4 and 5. He's like a 4.5. It's like, I'm going to play Chet at the 4.5 position. It's like, well, you got to choose. You're going to play Jalen Williams at power forward, or you're going to get a true center. You can't have it both ways. I think you're right. I don't know if it's a problem. It's more of a conversation. It's time to have a conversation.
Yeah, it's more of just okay. How do we fix this? I don't
it's
think it's
weird
really a
because
problem because
you want him on your team.
Player.
Yeah, you want him on your team. Any team wants a Chet Holmgren on their team, but if you're OKC, you have to carefully craft your team around him to be successful. You have to really play to what he can do well.
Paolo or Chet? Come on.
I'm sticking with it. 1-on-1, give me Paulo, but for any
no.
if you want one guy on your team to slide right in, I'm still taking Chet.
No.
Post it on Instagram.
Paolo can be the best player on a legit team. Chet is never going to be better than a number 3 option.
That's fair. But if you're looking for somebody to instantly contribute to winning on a team and not mess up any of the flow and rhythm, I'm still taking Chet. Go back to watch our podcast from 2 months ago. All those takes are still true.
Banchero was the right pick.
Oh, I'm not saying he was the best player.
He's the best player.
He was the right number 1 pick. He's the right number 1 pick, but there are levels to this where it's all right, if I want to Chet, you can find a Paulo Banchero every 3 drafts.
I guess it's a different conversation because who would the Thunder take?
Right, you're taking Chet.
I don't know. I think that's a little bit more of a conversation than we think. But we'll get it. That's stupid. It's the NBA playoffs. We're in the conference finals. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, let's go to the Eastern Conference. Pacers-Knicks today. Blowout game. Pacers win by 21, 130-109. Look, man, it's very simple. It doesn't take a lot to realize what happened today. Knicks ran out of gas. That's all you're going to hear for the next 3 days on the Knicks discourse if it lasts that long. Knicks ran out of gas. They got overplayed. Brunson broke his hand apparently. Was Brunson's broken hand? Because you're watching the game, you're like, Brunson's out of the game? And then you scroll Twitter and Underdog Fantasy, it's like, Brunson out, hand. In the locker room still, and you're like, what's going on? Brunson's still out. And then all of a sudden, you're on the broadcast, like, Brunson broke his hand. And you're just like, when did this happen? And then was it like when LeBron lost the finals in 2018? They're like, right in the press conference, they come out like, yeah, so LeBron pretty much has a broken hand, guys. Like, he played with a broken hand all series. Like, you guys, this wasn't his fault. Like,
if it was
the guy that never
Tuesday against
takes
the Wizards,
accountability.
he wouldn't have played.
Yeah. If this was any other game, he wouldn't have played any of these finals games, but he's just different. Witness king. But yeah, anyhow. Knicks ran out of gas. I don't know what more is to say. Connor, I'll go to you.
Yeah, so that would be the first thing on the Knicks side is I don't want to hear any excuses from Knicks fan about the shooting. Like, it's one thing to talk about the injuries. That's fine. But you can't come on here and be like, the Pacers had a historic shooting game. Like, this variance, like, that'll never happen again. There's a reason they only missed 7 shots in the paint. It's because the Knicks were gassed, because every drive was right by the top defender. Here's the help, dump off for a dunk, easy floater in the lane, fast break. Like, there's a reason that Knicks only missed, like, 7 2-pointers or something like that. But if you're the Knicks, I mean, there's nothing else you can do. They lost Randall for the year. Mitchell Robinson out. Bogdanovich, the number 1 trade piece, out. Josh Hart playing hurt. OG Anunoby shouldn't have been out there at all. By the way, nailed his live under on points, so that made me some money. FanDuel was way too slow in the draw there. But that's the thing. This will be a crazy season for the Knicks, a crazy offseason, because it's a what-if season. What if Randall didn't get hurt? What if at least like the rest of those guys stayed healthy and we made a run to the finals? Like, they could legitimately give Boston a shot in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know if they'd beat them, but they could have given them a shot if they were healthy. And I was thinking about it earlier. This is going to be like one of those what-if seasons. Like, oh, what if KD and Klay didn't get hurt in the 2019 Finals, and then the Warriors three-peat? Does KD stick around and then keep it going? What if, 2015 Kyrie and Kevin Love don't get hurt? Does LeBron beat the Warriors and that dynasty never even starts? Like, this next season, in their minds, is going to be one of those what-if seasons where it's like, this was our window. No Giannis, no Embiid, no Jimmy Butler. Like, all these people are hurt or not playing. The East was wide open to the Eastern Conference Finals for them. And then they just got bit even harder by this injury bug. And now the Celtics get a number 6 seed in the Pacers. Like, this was the year for the Knicks. And with a team like that, I don't know how large the window is. This might have been it. So that sucks for Knicks fans.
It's a great point because the Pacers, man, they're just, I guess technically they're just survival of the fittest. Like, not even playing the best. They're just the healthiest.
And they're still missing Mathurin. They're still missing Mathurin. Like, they're not even whole.
Yeah, and just... I guess, but I mean, and I don't want to discredit the Pacers at all. They played unbelievable today. They had an insane shooting performance. The questions we had of Tyrese Halliburton, he answered every single one of them today. He was so aggressive and he wasn't scared to shoot. That was huge by Tyrese Halliburton today. Chase, Pacers Knicks.
Yeah, just agree. I saw a tweet that said every Knicks player looks like John Wick at the end of the movie. I thought that was pretty good.
That's a great tweet.
Just very, very tired. Like, a lot of people are talking about how lucky the Celtics are, and don't get me wrong, they are so lucky. How about the Pacers, right? You get the Bucks without Giannis and half the games without Dame. You get post-World War I, New York Knicks here with everyone hurt. But got to give them a little bit of credit. Not a little bit.
But you play who's in front of you.
Proper credit, right? Yeah, like, they don't control that, and they won the games. They shot the absolute leather off the ball today, 67% from the field. 54 from 3, 33 assists. Like, even if the Knicks are healthy, they have a problem with that because what do you do when the team shoots that well? That's unheard of numbers. Heading into the next series, though, they have to keep doing that to have a shot against Boston. The size alone is enough to scare you, obviously. But very 21 Hawks-ish. I've said it like 17 times on this podcast. Very similar vibe. And look, I'm happy for Pacers fans. Like, this is super exciting for them. I don't think they've arrived. I'm not like, wow, this is the next generation. Because if the Knicks are healthy, they win that series in 6 or maybe even 5 games. Yeah. But credit the Pacers. Congrats, headed to the Eastern Conference Finals. Should be fun.
Will you say the Pacers have arrived if they upset the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I still wouldn't, and people might get on me for that.
No, I agree. I would still say flash in the pan.
Yeah, I'd say Boston is the dumbest team on earth. I would be like,
it would all be okay. Tatum, Brown, send one of them to Guangdong. Whatever you got to do, change it up because this is that ain't working. Let's do Pacers Celtics real quick. I mean, no more Knicks thoughts, right?
Well, did you guys expect the headline, Game 7, T.J. McConnell and Aaron Nesmith take on Alec Burks and Dante DiVincenzo next on ABC?
I was sitting there in the third quarter. I was like, Alec Burks might be their best option on offense. Him and DiVincenzo.
Well, Burks had 26, and then DiVincenzo was 1 point away from a 40 ball. So it's like that's how the Knicks offense went today. I don't know. I don't have much on the Knicks. The only thing is, it's just the what if stuff for New York. It really is. Because like you think of other scenarios like I just mentioned, and then it's like, oh, what if Cousins didn't tear his Achilles when he was playing with AD on the Pelicans? They were the best 2 big men in the league, hands down. Like there's just certain scenarios. D Rose torn, 2012. That's the one that comes to everybody's mind. I don't know. I do feel bad for Knicks fans because they've been so bad, so irrelevant, and this was the year. Everything lined up for them, and they just couldn't stay healthy. Which sucks.
I think the Knicks are actually in. And this might be a hot take. They're actually in a really good spot right now.
I was going to say the same thing.
They brought the city. The city is back on their side, right? MSG was always bumping. Knicks fans have something to be happy about again, and they have the perfect excuse. The perfect excuse, right? Really fun season, really fun team. They love these players are so lovable. I mean, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, obviously, DiVincenzo, even Hartenstein. If he's on your team, you love him. He's a grinder. Like this team's built to just be loved. They have this excuse that they were decimated by injuries. And all we have to say is like, dude, what if, right? And we can let's run it back. Yeah. The Knicks are back. They have the city. They have their fans back. They have a fun team. And if you're looking in the Knicks offseason, like you're kind of be like, let's just do this again. Let's get a better, physical therapy, freaking team doctor in here, and let's just run this back. Yeah, exactly. And like, let's run this back. The East isn't getting any better. I don't see any big moves. I mean, Giannis may be healthy next year, and that's kind of the only thing that I see changing. So it's like, let's run this back with the Knicks, right?
You want to hear a crazy stat? 0 of the Knicks opening night starting 5 finished the season healthy or with the team. RJ Barrett traded, Quentin Grimes traded, Brunson broke his hand, Robinson missed the entire round, Randall missed the whole playoffs. None of those 5 starters from opening night finished the season.
If they would have kept RJ Barrett, they're probably sweeping the Celtics, if we're being honest.
Facts. Big facts. Unbiased opinion there. One more stat. I should have mentioned this earlier. The Pacers shot 67.1% today from the field. That's the single best field goal percentage in playoff history from the Indiana Pacers. That's a little crazy.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Boston, Indiana. What are we thinking? What are we thinking here, Chase? You're the Celtics fan. You're the resident Celtics fan. It could not have worked out better as a Celtics fan in these playoffs. I mean, it is a dream path. As a Celtics fan, I would have rather had the Knicks, to be honest, just because, there's just no way. You don't think? Because at least the Knicks were done. The Knicks were dead in the water, Connor.
Maybe this version of the Knicks, real quick, before you go, Chase.
They weren't getting healthy enough.
But I bet this is best case scenario for Boston, because if they play New York, it's a slow game. It's a grind it out. It's a muck it up series. Like somebody on Boston's pulling a hamstring, twisting an ankle. It is so slow paced. And yes, Boston will come out of that alive, but that screws them for the finals. Now they're playing the Pacers, run and gun. There's going to be 85 possessions each way in this game or something crazy. Like Tatum, Brown, these guys are going to get up 25 shots a game, and that's going to get them ready for the finals. So play style wise, I think I'd rather have the Pacers because they're going to win either way. They're going to the finals either way. But at least this way, they're probably going to stay healthier than against New York, and they're going to get their shot right because there are going to be so many shot opportunities against the Pacers' porous defense.
Or I don't know, the Pacers have had some weird voodoo magic where they've injured Lillard and Giannis isn't playing, and they've injured some Knicks. Like there's something weird going on in Indiana. I don't know if they summoned the ghost of Bill Knight or Bob Knight, but something's going on in Indiana right now because how in the hell are they in the Eastern Conference Finals? It doesn't make sense, but I never got to my question, Chase. How do you feel as a Celtics fan? I mean, you just got to feel amazing.
I mean, yeah. Like, the path couldn't be better. And now the Nuggets are out. Like, we didn't even, not to mention that. I will say, though, as the resident CarterCast Boston fan, here's my official take. I would have rather had the Knicks. They were dead, and it would have been more fun, right, to play in MSG. It would have been more respectable when Boston eventually poops their pants for one game, right? Be like, all right, it was the Knicks. It was in Madison Square Garden. It's like, whatever. But it's like, oh, you lost to the Pacers? Like, nice.
Yeah. In the field house.
Yeah, exactly. So
do you remember last year when the Nuggets beat the Lakers and they weren't even celebrating? They were just like, yay, whatever, fine. That's what it's going to be like when the Celtics beat the Pacers because it was so expected. They're just going to be like, yay, we did it. Like, awesome. It's not going to be like the Timberwolves winning today.
Exactly. Right. And I always think about, it's in my mind, obviously, when they went to the finals a couple of years ago, like Al was on the floor crying, and like everyone was like so pumped. This year it should be, and I expect it to be just all business, right? In fact, even like a little bit like, I don't want to disrespect the Pacers, but it's kind of be like, oh, gross. Like, all right, on to the finals. Like, oh, wow, we just beat the Pacers in 5. Like, way
it's
to
like
go.
Swatting a fly off you when you're outside. It's like, oh, I'm heading to the pool. It's like, oh, it's that fly that just flick it off real quick. One thing about this.
If I was a Pacers fan listening, I'd be so mad.
Does it sneaky feel like an NBA TV series to you guys? To where it's like, oh, the Celtics and the Pacers first round of the 2024 playoffs. Like that's what
ESPN's
like.
Pissed right now.
Every Boston series has felt this way.
Yeah.
Every single Boston series has felt this way. This does. You're right, Chase. ESPN should be very, very pissed. I mean, to be honest, I think. The Minnesota Dallas is a way better series for sure for TV purposes and everything. But you could kind of hear the disappointment in a little bit in TNT's voice when they're like, "We got to go to Minnesota."
Yeah, that's so true.
But also, and I bet Minnesota's going to show out and it's going to be awesome. But ESPN, man, like. You're going to turn it on, and you're just going to be like, ugh, fine, like, mute. The mute button's going to hit so hard in the series.
Yes. That's so true. Oh, my God.
All right, on the actual basketball side of things, Chase, how are we feeling?
Good. Yeah, Indiana doesn't match up well, obviously. You have the guards to neutralize Halliburton, who I'm not totally scared of if I'm Boston. He can get hot a little bit, but he's never gonna take over a game. That's not happening. I'm worried that Aaron Nesmith is gonna shoot Jason Tatum in the parking lot after game 1. But other than that, there's not a whole lot. Siakam, can put up 20, and I still wouldn't be worried because I think Boston still has the size to guard him. The wing's gonna be the huge difference. TJ McConnell's gonna be absolute barbecue chicken whenever he's on the floor. It's not going to be a TJ McConnell series, I'll tell you that. There's just a lot of things that are so obvious about this series. The one thing the Pacers have, they can just shoot like they did tonight, the lights out of the ball, randomly. Nembhard could have 5 threes, and Halliburton's on one, and even Miles Turner's making shots, and that in that case, right, Boston needs to worry about that. But it's never happened. It's not happening 4 times, and they're not going to have the chance to take this series. So.
If you're the Celtics, what do you do about Chris Stapps? I would just consider benching, just not playing him this whole series and making sure he is 1,000% for the finals.
Yeah, actually, sneaky storyline I was going to bring up. If Knicks win this game and they go play Boston, Chris Stapps comes back and plays game 3, his first game. Because he would want to go into Madison Square Garden and tell all the Knicks fans to shut the F up, right? That, because that was his place, right? But now that they're playing Indiana, I don't think we see him this series, and that's A-okay with me because let him rest up, let him get ready for the finals.
Only scenario you see Porzingis is if you're down 0-2. If you start out down 0-2, then okay, bring him back, rush him back if you're Boston. But there's about a 1 in 500,000 chance of that happening. The one thing about the Pacers is they can literally just play free in this series. Like, there is no pressure on them at all. They're playing with house money. They shouldn't be here. Celtics are title favorites. So if you're the Pacers, you want to play as fast as possible, get up as many shots as possible, get up as many threes as possible, and just rely on that variance, that shot variance of, okay, maybe we speed Boston up enough, they miss enough threes, we get hot a couple games, and all of a sudden it's, 2-2 or something like that. Somehow it's 2-2 going back to Boston. Like, you just want to get up as many shots as possible, have as many possessions as possible, and just balls to the wall. Because if you slow it down and you play methodical, Boston's going to be up by 20 going into the fourth quarter every single game. And that's what I kind of expect to happen. But I will say, 2 bets I love in this is series exact. You can bet Pacers to win game 1 and then Boston to win 4 straight, 17-1, or Boston to win game 1, Pacers to win game 2, and then Boston to win 3 straight, 17-1. That's the other one.
The problem is they play Tuesday, and Indiana just got off the 7-game series. So winning game 1 is going to be a huge chore for the Pacers. But I do like the thought behind it. Yeah.
Well, that's
game 2.
Well, that's I know I just froze right there, so you might not have heard it, but I said the one I like the most is Boston game 1, Pacers game 2, Boston 3 straight, also 17.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one. It's so predictable. Chase, you've said it 1,000 times during the playoffs. Boston's just too silly. Boston's going to blow a game. Pacers are going to get hot, and Boston's going to lose by 20 points for no reason, and you're like, what the crap? What's going on there? Game 3, it's close all game. It's kind of uncomfortable, and you're like, why is this an 8-point game in the fourth quarter? Like, just finish it. Be done with it. And not by any exciting plays, really. All of a sudden, you're just looking at the score, and you're like, oh, Celtics won by 17. Cool. All right, let's move on to the next game. And it's just every game's like that for Boston. And I feel like the trend's going to continue. We can get into the series predictions right now. I'll start off Boston versus Indiana series prediction. I'm going Boston in 5. It's what we've seen all playoffs. I think Boston's a much better team. Like we just mentioned, I think Boston wins game 1 just because of the short turnaround for Indiana after a 7-game series with a super defensive team and just a rough series against the Knicks. And then Pacers come out, shoot lights out in game 2 in Boston, like we've seen the rest of the playoffs against these Celtics teams. And then Boston wins 3 straight. Give me Boston in 5. Chase.
I'm a pessimistic Boston fan. If you didn't already know that, here you go. I'm gonna go Boston in 6. I think they're stupid twice a game. I think Indiana beats them twice. I think it's like 3-2. And first take is like, holy crap, are we worried about Boston Celtics? And Kendrick Perkins like, oh yeah, I'm really worried about the Boston Celtics. But I think Boston's stupid twice, and they drop 2, and everyone freaks out. But ultimately, Boston's gonna win. So I'm gonna take Boston in 6.
Connor.
We've seen it all playoffs. Boston hates game 2. I'm going Boston in 5. I think it's pretty simple. They're the more talented team, even without Porzingis. Pacers are playing with house money. They shouldn't even be here right now, arguably with the path they had. So shout out Pacers for making it this far. Very exciting, small market team, like we said earlier. Like, good for you, Indiana. Like, I would relish every moment, but they're overmatched here, and I don't think it's a hot take to say that.
Yeah, I would say a credit to Indiana. If this was like a 1-game series, like if this is a March Madness situation, I'd be very scared.
In-season tournament?
Because
This was an in-season tournament series?
Yeah, I mean it was, and Indiana beat Boston,
they beat 'em.
right? Because they just got insanely hot from 3, and this is they can do that, but they're not going to do it 4 times. So,
all right, before we go, we're running out of time here. Last thing I want to do before we go, NBA Finals predictions as of right before conference finals start on Tuesday. We're recording late Sunday night, May 20 or May 19th. NBA Finals predictions before the conference finals. Go with you, Connor.
I'm going to go Boston Celtics, Minnesota Timberwolves in the NBA Finals, and I'm taking Boston in 6. I think Ant and the boys, Timberwolves, get to the finals. They've arrived. They're going to be here for the long term in the playoffs, but I think this is Boston's year. I think everything's been set up perfectly for them to get to the NBA Finals, and I think once they get there, they are built to win it this year. They have so many options. They have so much depth. I think they're going to just outclass the Timberwolves. So I got Boston in 6. That's the prediction.
Chase.
the Boston Celtics will beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in 7 games. It's going to be in Boston. It's going to be a magical moment. It's going to be huge for the city. Boston 7.
I'm going Mavs Celtics, and I'm going to go Celtics in 7. I think we're going to see Kyrie's return to Boston. I think that's going to be the storyline going into the NBA Finals. Kyrie comes back to Boston, and I think the Mavs get it done against the Timberwolves, and I think we have a super, super competitive series, and I think Boston ends up coming out on top, playing in the Garden in Game 7. I'm going Boston in 7 over the Mavericks.
How many Kyrie Irving middle fingers to the Boston crowd are you predicting in that series? Over under like 5?
I don't know. He looks like a changed man to me.
I think Boston's over it. I'm over as a fan. I think most of Boston's over.
Oh, you're talking about from Boston fans?
Oh, no, like Kyrie to the Boston fans.
From Boston fans, it's 20,000.
I think it's a lot more chill than what people realize. It's been a long time, right? And Boston's got a lot more to celebrate now. They got a better team. So, personally, I'm over it, but you never know.
Boston fans are not going to be over that. No way. They just going to be...
They'll find a storyline to get mad over. That's the thing.
And I think as long as the Celtics win, ESPN is thrilled with the finals. Because either way, they have Celtics versus Kyrie and the Mavs. Is this Luka? And then you can get Mark Cuban on interviews and that whole thing. Or if it's the Timberwolves, you get the beginning of Anthony Edwards. And that's going to matter. No matter what, that's a dream TV series for ESPN. As long as the Pacers don't win. And if you're a Pacers fan, you whip out every conspiracy theory going into these conference finals.
Instantly.
It's not happening.
You're like, oh, the league didn't want us here. Adam Silver made a call. Like, they don't want us here. Like, that's why this is going. Like, not the fact we lost by 30.
Yeah. Anything else before we get?
I'll say it every podcast. I think Drake May's the future.
Okay, all right, that's it. That's the white towel. That's the white towel. Every time Chase mentions Drake May, that's the white towel on the Patriots.
Guys,
Patriots
listeners.
playoffs?
Listeners, I have 30 minutes of Drake May material. He won't let me whip it out. So if you want to hear
Maybe
it,
one
just
day.
leave a
We're not
comment.
that
Leave a
desperate for
comment if you want to hear
content
it.
yet. We're not that desperate
Yeah,
for
and
content.
then
Leave a comment that's not mean-spirited. How about that?
Exactly.
I've got 30. I got a New Orleans like rant on Miles Sanders always in the bank. We can work that up any day. That New Orleans rant feels like it happened 3 days ago. This podcast went on forever. That's okay. It was a great one. Thank you guys so much for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Chase_Roger0, at Connor_Sparrow, at CarterBA, at CarterCast on all social media. That's at CarterCast on all social media. If you're watching this on X right now, hit that follow button on X. Subscribe to the YouTube. Subscribe, like, do what you got to do to help out. And then Apple, Spotify, you know the drill. Rate, review. Do what you got to do. CarterCast.com. I'm back in the blog game, Connor. We're back. We're back in the blog game.
Love to see that.
Only did one. Only did one. The fingers were rusty.
Still qualifies. Still qualifies. You're back.
Exactly. Still back. So back. Anyhow, check out CarterCast.com. Follow us on all social media. We'll see y'all later this week for another NBA episode. And see y'all next time. Bye-bye.